Hopefully, you're becoming a better driver every day. But no matter how good you are, driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol negates everything you've ever learned. You're no longer able to make the same smart decisions you do on a daily basis. You lose your faculties, which may end up causing you to lose control of your vehicle and your life. Just like you, Adam, Kim, and Molly have heard a lot about the bad things drugs and alcohol can do from teachers, parents, and other organizations. You all know that driving drunk can kill, but in this program, we're going to touch on the wide spectrum of bad things that can happen as a result of drugs and alcohol. Sadly, more than 2,000 teens are killed every year due to drunk driving. Although knowing statistics like this is important, statistics alone aren't powerful enough to defeat drunk driving incidents. I asked you all to come here to show you a few videos and discuss issues regarding drugs and alcohol. I know you've got a lot of people talking to you about this, but I want you to get some information from a few sources you may not have heard from. Let's get started.
Kid that thinks he can just smoke one joint and everything will be okay, or I can just drink one beer and that's okay, is wrong. Because everybody's going to stretch things to the limit.
In November of 1994, my 17-year-old son Jason was killed by a drunk driver.
You name a drug that a person does now, and I can guarantee that it's going to affect their driving. There's all kinds out there. People think just something minor, marijuana, won't harm you, but I've seen a lot of accidents out there that marijuana did contribute to that accident in one way, shape, or form.
Jason and a friend of his, Dina Corey, was killed by a drunk driver who had a blood alcohol content of 0.36.
29 on the VIN, when you can copy.
All right, the reason why I stopped you, I noticed back there you weren't driving on the right-hand side of the road. You kind of weaved over into the other lane, a couple of beers. Okay. Okay. Tell you what, why don't you go ahead and step out of the car for me? I just want to do a couple tests, make sure you're okay to drive. Missouri also has what we call zero tolerance law for minors. If you're under 21 and you have a blood alcohol content of 0.02 or more, you will lose your license. And I want you to take 9 heel-to-toe steps, okay? Along this line, just like this, okay?
Guy who killed those kids crossed the center line because of his advanced state of intoxication and ran into the kids who didn't have a chance to even avoid the crash.
I've seen people's heads popped open, brain matter on the ground, hands cut off, some of the goriest stuff.
I thought that I could just about fix anything, and I couldn't fix this. This was one thing I couldn't make new again.
You could be looking at, for misdemeanor in Missouri, first time offense, you could be looking at up to 1 year in jail. Third offense makes it a felony, so you're looking at a minimum of 1 year in jail. If you compound that conviction with something to the effect of an assault, where you cause an accident, hurt somebody, even if it's one of your friends, it might be in your vehicle. It's still assault. Kill somebody, it's manslaughter, at least in Missouri. Other states may call it murder, which is basically what it is. Even though you don't intend to, that's basically what you're doing if you cause an accident and you're drunk. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to place you under arrest for DWI, okay? So I need you to go ahead and turn around and put your hands behind your back, okay?
I was a drunk driving offender, just like many parents are. I wasn't what you would call a hardcore offender, but I did drive under the influence more times than I am really, I'm really ashamed to say that it was quite a few times. The only thing that changed my mind is seeing my son's corpse in a box, and that kind of shook me up, and it made me take another look at what I was doing as a drunk driving offender. I was putting other families at risk of going through what my family went through.
and then you probably have to call someone come post your bond. Just to make sure before I get in, I'm gonna have to search you. All right? Have somebody come and get you if you had something to drink, or hopefully you don't do drugs. But if you have done drugs, hopefully you got sense enough to have somebody come and pick you up, or don't drive. Sleep it off and then get up the next morning and go home. It's better to get home safe than not get home at all. I'm sure parents of the kids out there, they may complain that they got to come pick them up at 3 in the morning, but they'd rather that than have one of us knocking on their door telling them that their son or daughter's been killed in an accident. I've had to do it too many times, and the first time I had to do it, that was too many.
What I try to get through when I do my public speaking engagements is to let them know that I was not much different than those that do offend. And it took a terrible tragedy for me to change my mind. So I'm hoping that through my experience and through the legacy of Jason's death, that parents understand that it can happen in a flash. And it's not just deaths, but it's hideous injuries that victims of drunk driving crashes sustain.
So what did you guys think? Adam?
Well, I thought the father's story was very persuasive.
Yeah, it's tough seeing pictures of someone our age, like his son, knowing that they were killed by something so foolish.
That has to be a parent's worst nightmare.
You could really tell that it hurts him to admit that he used to drive drunk himself.
Problem is, it takes something so tragic to change a person's beliefs. If his son had never been killed, he'd probably still be driving drunk on a regular basis without thinking about the consequences.
You're right. Part of the problem is that people don't take action until tragedy strikes their family.
But I think we can learn a lot from this man's story. He could easily have fallen into some sort of depression and just given up. Instead, he's taking action and trying to prevent others from facing what he had to face.
Yeah, you gotta give him credit for that.
The fact is that most teens don't think it can happen to us. We think we're invincible.
Right, but we never think about the other consequences. How embarrassed would you be if you got caught driving drunk? Plus, my parents would take everything away from me. I have no life.
You bring up a great point, Kim. You're talking about the other costs of driving under the influence. Every 2 minutes, there's a non-fatal accident caused by someone driving under the influence. Just because these accidents are non-fatal doesn't mean the drivers don't pay for it. Let me show you guys another short video of a couple people I talked to about driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol.
Some of the monetary cost of being arrested for DWI is having your vehicle towed, which is very expensive, and then you have to get it out of the impound lot. There's attorney fees involved. Most people do not represent themselves, and I would recommend getting a lawyer.
To pay for an attorney for the first driving offense would be anywhere from, say, $2,500 to $5,000. For the second offense, from where I'm from, it would be anywhere from $5,000 on. For the third offense, it would be more than $5,000, probably more than $7,500, because you are dealing with a very serious allegation.
Whether you are able to get your attorney to get the charges reduced, it won't matter to an insurance company. They look at it just the same as if you were convicted of an alcohol-related offense. Anytime there is alcohol involved while you are driving, an insurance company considers that a high-risk driving, and the same thing's going to happen to you as if you were charged with a DWI.
It is possible for teens to lose their driver's license for driving under the influence of alcohol. That really depends on the court system and the judges. They make those final decisions.
You want to give people who have their first violation when you're not an adult yet every chance to rehabilitate yourself and not get in trouble again and be able to drive and work and go to school. But your first offense, make no mistake, the judges take it very seriously, and they will tag any minor who gets their first DWI with a fine, with probation, and you're going to have your driving privileges suspended for some period of time. The question is how much, depending on whether it's your first offense or second offense.
If someone in their household has a DWI, especially a teen, is the whole family's insurance can be canceled or triple. It's not just the teen's insurance. Many companies, if there is a teen in the household, will cancel the insurance of everyone in the household or require that the teen not be allowed to drive any of the vehicles in the household. They must sign a waiver to say that that person would not drive any of the vehicles in the household for them to continue to insure the rest of the family.
On every application, it doesn't just say whether you have a conviction on your record anymore. It asks you whether you've ever had to plead guilty or been found guilty basically of any criminal offense. And be assured that a DWI or driving offense is considered a criminal offense. What can happen? It can affect your ability to get student loans. It can affect your ability to get admitted to a certain college. It can affect your ability to get a job.
The insurance rate of a minor who gets charged with the DWI generally will at least double. It can as much as triple or quadruple, depending on other incidents that the minor might have.
You can bet that you will pay a stiff penalty and you will do time if you kill someone while you're drinking and driving.
That probably gave you a different perspective than you're used to, right?
For the most part, I've just been told about the tragic side of it. You know, the death and pain of loved ones. While it's effective, I think kids our age need to be involved in discussions about the other costs talked about in this video. We don't think anything terrible can happen to us, but we need to know that even if the worst doesn't happen, we're still in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, like the zero tolerance. If I'm pulled over with any trace of alcohol in my breath or in my blood, how am I going to afford the fines and court costs? The money I make over the summer would never cover that. It's just not worth it.
Exactly. Our parents would have to pay our fines, and we'd be working it off forever. Not to mention the embarrassment of having to face them after doing something so stupid.
Plus, you run the risk of losing your license. So now you know the other costs of acting so foolish and getting behind the wheel drunk. But do you know how alcohol and other drugs affects our bodies and our ability to drive?
It's because the alcohol gets into our blood and affects our judgment.
Definitely.
It also affects our vision and reaction time, right? I mean, once you have alcohol in your system, you begin to lose concentration and your reflexes become slower.
Exactly. The addition of alcohol and other drugs into your bloodstream makes it more difficult to react appropriately when driving. You lose depth perception, so you don't brake as early as you should, and your vision becomes blurred, making it more difficult to follow the road and react to other vehicles around you. I arranged a little experiment to show you guys how alcohol can affect your reaction time, mental acuity, coordination, judgment, and perception. Watch this. I'm here with Jamie, who will be undergoing a series of tests that will measure his physical and mental well-being as he consumes alcohol. The purpose of this experiment is to determine what type of difference exists between his actual abilities and his perception of his abilities. Jamie's going to complete the first series of tests while completely sober. First, I'm going to drop this ball and see how quickly Jamie reacts. As soon as I release the ball, Jamie is going to hit the bell. This will test his reaction time. Watch the slow motion replay as we put Jamie's reaction time on screen. The clock starts once the ball leaves my hand and stops as soon as Jamie's hand makes contact with the bell. This next exercise will test Jamie's coordination. We're simply observing how difficult it is for Jamie to cross the balance beam. It seems pretty easy right now. Next, we'll test Jamie's mental acuity by timing him as he completes a maze. We're keeping the time hidden from Jamie, but you can see it on the screen. He's going to repeat these tests multiple times. However, Jamie, who's of legal age at 27, is going to consume a bottle of beer before the next test. Now, 15 minutes after his first beer, I'll give him a breathalyzer test to determine his blood alcohol concentration. Once we get a reading, look for it on the screen. I'm going to drop the ball from the same spot, and when Jamie sees it drop, he'll hit the bell. Again, watch the slow motion replay and watch for his reaction time on screen. We'll record the amount of time it takes Jamie to complete a maze of the same difficulty as the previous maze. Let's keep going. We'll put the results on the screen so you can observe any differences. However, you're going to have to watch closely to notice any difference in Jamie's coordination on the balance beam. So how do you feel now?
I feel fine. I don't really feel any ill effects of the alcohol at this point.
After 3 beers, do you feel like you're doing any better, worse, or performing consistently on these tests?
I feel like I'm still doing pretty much the same as how I was doing before. My reaction time feels about the same, and I feel like I nailed that last maze, so I feel like I'm pretty much about the same.
Do you feel any different after 4 beers? Do you think you could drive a car?
I do feel a little different now after 4 beers. I feel like the alcohol is having some kind of effect on me, maybe slowing my reaction time a bit. However, I still definitely think I'm within the legal limit and could drive a car.
Five beers later, what are your thoughts?
When I see the 5 empty beers here, I have to think that I'm suffering some ill effects from the alcohol. However, after doing the tests, I don't really feel like, I'm getting that much slower. For instance, the reaction time test, I feel like I'm still doing, pretty well on that. Knocking through the mazes. I feel like I'm not having very much trouble on the balance beam. So while I know that I've had the 5 beers, I still feel like I'm, okay. I might be near the legal limit, but I still think I'm okay to drive.
So you've finished an entire 6-pack of beer. Honestly, how do you feel about your reaction time and your ability to drive a car?
Well, as far as my reaction time goes, I feel like I've been consistent on the bell test. I haven't felt that I've gotten any slower with that. Some of the other tests, like the balance beam, there's a little waver in there, and on the maze, I felt they've all been pretty easy throughout. So based upon that, I still think I can drive a car without too much difficulty. I'm probably near the legal limit, but I still think I can drive a car.
Well, your blood alcohol concentration passed the legal limit after your 5th beer, and your reaction time was negatively impacted.